and welcome to Doing Disasters Differently, the podcast with Renae Hanvin, which is all about inspiring you to start thinking and doing disasters a little bit differently too. In this episode, I'm talking with Hayley Hardy, the marketing manager from the East Gippsland Marketing Inc., and we're talking about a winter festival of community resilience. Now, I'd like to start with where we met. I first met Hayley through the amazing Jody Wilmer from Happy Changemakers, and Jody and I did a podcast a few episodes ago. Jody is a passionate local of the East Gippsland region who I've known for many years, and she reached out to me when she heard of the community-led idea of a winter festival. Jody told me about this group who were looking to create the East Gippsland Winter Festival to build resilience and support the recovery of the local East Gippsland region. It was an idea from the very talented and creative Adam Bloem. Putting my hand up to help, Jody and I provided some pro bono time to the working group to help them identify their capabilities and their gaps in delivering on their idea. While running some strategic workshops, I met Hayley from EGMI, and I must say I was so inspired by her and the EGMI's team's passion for the success of the region. With only a few weeks to go until the East Gippsland Winter Festival launches, and it will brighten up the region in these very wintry months, it's so great to have Hayley chat with me today. So Hayley, let's start with, can you tell me a little bit about your role at the EGMI?
So at EGMI, I am the marketing manager, and I have a team of an admin assistant or marketing assistant and a stakeholder assistant. So I'm essentially the person in charge.
Nice. And what is the EGMI, just for those who might not have heard of it before?
So marketing, or EGMI, is the regional marketing body for East Gippsland. We are the body that encourages people to visit, live, work and invest into East Gippsland.
Such an important role, and it's such an important, association in that part of the world, because East Gippsland, as we know, has been impacted by the bushfires, but it's such a beautiful part of Victoria and Australia. In the introduction, I mentioned about how we connected and hearing of Adam's idea. So how did you come to hear about Adam's idea of a winter festival in East Gippsland?
Well, Adam and I have actually been friends for a really long time. We actually met at school, as with any small town. But Adam is actually, when he returned to East Gippsland a few years ago, and I returned to East Gippsland after university and, all of that sort of stuff. About 5 years ago, and reconnected, but he joined the EGMI board. So we are managed by a 13-member volunteer board, which is made up of people from around the community in the business world. Adam joined our board, and last year, after the fires, he raised the possibility of doing an event that encompassed all of East Gippsland, and was, encompassing the arts and food and wine and all of these various communities that had not just been had been impacted by fire, but also not directly impacted by fire, but also by the tourists leaving. And so all of these businesses had been hard hit financially. And how EGMI could assist the festival from a marketing and advice standpoint. So, we discussed that and what we could and couldn't do and how that could all roll out. But yeah, so that's how that came about. So yeah, it's a great, fabulous idea.
It is. It's such a great idea. And as I alluded to, when Jody, beautiful Jody, reached out to me and was like, oh, these, community people have got this idea about a winter festival. And what I love so much about it is the fact that it's inclusive, and it's not something that everyone has to, be unified to do. You can do it and participate it in your own way. And what I loved about it when I was privileged enough to do a couple of workshops with you guys, it's a way of bringing everyone together and of celebrating the region and creating a really wonderful event for the region. But it enables all the communities and the businesses and the groups and the communities to come together and participate it in the right way that's for them. And as you say, the arts and the lantern making and the crafts and the foods and seeing everything on the social media over the past few months has just been, awesome seeing it come alive. Your region's obviously been through a lot with the bushfires, and then obviously, we'll throw a few COVIDs. And in fact, today we're in another snap lockdown in Victoria. So why is the festival needed in the region?
Festivals needed for a couple of different reasons, and you've obviously just touched on that. Obviously, the key thing is to get tourism to return to East Gippsland. The financial or economic benefits is really important. Winter has always been a time of year when we typically have a low point in our tourism, low visitor spend, I suppose, in East Gippsland. And so I think Adam was really cognizant of that when he raised around the event, because we didn't really anticipate what COVID was going to do. It wasn't even a real thing then when we first raised the idea. What we wanted to do was encourage people to come back to East Gippsland and continue to come back into East Gippsland. Obviously, with COVID, with borders closed and that sort of stuff, people are doing a lot more road trips, which is fabulous. But that doesn't really encompass everything. So over the past 12 months and even past that, so if you take into consideration going back a couple of years, East Gippsland's been through drought, bushfires, and now COVID. Businesses and the community are really, really exhausted. They're really tired. So what this event has actually done has created this sense of optimism and hope and a real sense of bringing people together. So with some of the funding that Adam's managed to achieve for the event has done something really simple, and that's just to provide community with, here's $500 to get your little lantern parade off the ground. Here's another $1,000 to get a band to play at the local pub. And all it's done is to get people together and actually be able to go, yes, I can do that. I can do that for my community. I can actually get things done. And we've ended up with almost 90 events across East Gippsland.
Wow.
And it's also been able to get people thinking about what's next, what else can I do for my community? And it's just been astounding. And the amount of happiness and optimism and go, oh, yep, this is really simple. I can do this and I can do it myself. And because we're not running these events, the community is running them.
I was going to say, it's the perfect example of community-led resilience. So in the disaster space, obviously, there's national frameworks around community-led recovery and community-led resilience. But, by you guys setting up the structure and the opportunity for people to get involved and I guess enabling them to get involved. And again, as you said, it's that hope, it's that reimagine, it's picking the time in the town that, is the low season or whatever. But now there's so much excitement, and even just all the social posts and the conversations we've been having with people in the community, they're so excited. There is that, I guess, reignited kind of, enthusiasm that, as you said, there's been a lot going on in the region. So, and I think, from the business perspective, so we obviously do a lot with businesses, does your EGMI as well. And I think it offers locals and businesses to almost relook at what role their business can play as well, in the sense of, can they open different? Can they have a different menu? Can they run different events? Can they have a special food offering? Celebrate the local foods. And the other thing that I really liked about the structure of what you set up behind the scenes is that it's about local communities celebrating with other local communities as well. So very much not about us and them and fighting for the tourism dollar, et cetera, but it's like, what are you going to be in your community? And then how can we celebrate that and complement that in our community too, which again comes from the leadership team. So what exactly, if I'm a visitor stuck in Melbourne, or coming from another state, what's the Winter Festival going to offer me as a tourist?
Well, we've got a real wealth of events. So there's obviously the art-led events, which one of the key ones for those is the Lakes Lights Lanterns. So that's running obviously in Lakes Entrance on June 27th. And that's a real key event. I would highly recommend that one. Some of the more foodie ones, which I highly recommend, there's Deep Winter from Sailor's Grave, which is one of our craft breweries. They do some amazing, really imaginative brews.
We'll need a few of those.
Absolutely. After this week, there's also Soda Fish, which is a hatted restaurant in Lakes Entrance. They're doing a winter seafood feast. They're doing a couple of dinners there. If further afield, Omeo is doing a burger, bonfires and banter night up in Omeo. Meetung as a township has got all sorts of events on. There's some ice making, some lighting up the town. They've got like murder mysteries, a few different other things going on. There's all sorts of things happening in that township. Bensdale has got a laneway augmented reality sort of showcase. There's a whole laneway in Bensdale, which they've had artists paint huge murals on, and they're going to some of them will be lit up with some augmented reality, which is quite exciting.
Wow,
so there's some really key events. But if you wanted to have a bit of a peruse, the website's egwinterfest.com.au, and you can have a bit of a look through and see how that works with weekends away and children, because there's lots of different workshops as well for kids. So
yeah, amazing. So we're definitely sharing the link with the podcast, and then also through our socials, absolutely starting to promote it soon. So when we were doing the workshops, I was talked a lot about the prevalence of connections, and as we do a lot of work with Professor Daniel Aldrich around social ties and social capital. I mean, we've sort of alluded to it a little bit, but this winter festival it's just got a massive potential to really build people connections and resilience in communities, because while the festival is obviously a fun, lots of 90 events that people can attend, it actually has underlying kind of resilience-led capability building that is the secondary kind of outcome. So having watched all the social media stories and that coming through, do you feel like there's like the connections are building like stronger in the communities and across the communities from the process of creating this festival?
Yeah, I really do. There's some really beautiful stories coming through the towns, and some are totally unexpected consequences for us. I'm not like you. I don't normally work in the recovery or resilience space, but I'm just some of the stuff that's coming through. Say with the Laneway event, which is this, these artists, accomplished artists, are doing these amazing murals. They've been talking to some of the youth around East Gippsland who, like with many other townships, we've got some young kids who have gone around the town and tagging things, and it has annoyed some of the business community, which is not unusual for any town. But these kids haven't tagged any of these murals, not any of it. But they've been talking to the artists and talking to them about the art that they're doing, asking them about, can you not paint over this particular tag? That tag was my friend who died, and so telling them all about their life stories and all this other stuff. Like, it's just, there's some really lovely stories that are coming out around all sorts of things at the moment, and it's a lot of mental health type stories and all of that sort of stuff. And I just think it's going to have some really beautiful long-term impacts, I think, across all sorts of communities.
Yeah. I'm shivering with just hearing those sorts of stories, because I think, again, a lot of what we do and what we talk about, it's the small things that make the biggest difference. And, for those kids to be talking to the artists, and, who knows what world of possibilities it opens up just for one child, in the region by doing something like this. I mean, it's extraordinary. And there must be many, many, many other stories under that as well. Now, I mean, I can't imagine the, enthusiasm in the community, again, to have something and a focal point to deliver to. But obviously you can't do it all from, funding in the community. And obviously I know there's some grants and that have been applied for. But what kind of partners and sponsors have you got involved?
Some partners are local. So we've got, we've got a lot of we've got some grant funding with Creative Victoria and FRRR and PHN, which is the Public Health Network. So they're our main ones, and there's some local sponsors as well. So they're the ones we have had involved, and we've and got some in-kind sponsorships too.
What I love about that, though, is it's again local. So what's the vision for the festival? So is this a one-off, or are you anticipating that it will be, bigger and better next year?
I would hope that it would continue on. I'm not sure that we could guarantee that we'd get 90 events next year, but look, I think it will evolve, each year, because it really has been completely embraced by the community, which has been amazing. And I do think it will continue on, because we don't have anything like this in East Gippsland. There are no other winter events at all, or any events that go over a period of time. So yeah, I absolutely think it will continue.
Yeah, I hope so. So, and again, totally happy to put my hand up to help a bit more if you need it in the future, to keep it going. And again, if there are any corporates or philanthropic funders who are listening to us today who might be interested in having a conversation with Hayley, we'll put Hayley's contact details as well, because I think it's obviously having such a great impact in this beautiful part of Victoria, that if we can help it and evolve it and make it a really important part of the community moving forward, I think that's just so special. And again, such a simple, great idea from two little high school friends who've created this, and obviously lots of others as part of the working group and volunteers to create this amazing outcome of the East Gippsland Winter Festival. Now, Hayley, I always end with the same question. This question's not necessarily related to the Winter Festival. It could be just related to your experience in East Gippsland or your role at the GMI. But what two things do you think should be done differently in the disaster space now that you've been in it for a little bit?
One thing that we've really noticed locally in East Gippsland is that while we've had lots of people who are incredibly well intentioned come to East Gippsland since January last year, wanting to offer their services or providing funding or that sort of thing, often it's to say, here's my services, here's my money for this thing, or here's this thing for your community. Most of the time, those services or whatever doesn't take into consideration what the community might need. They don't ask the questions about community requirements, and often, and particularly with government, it doesn't provide the community time to go through a bit of that shock and grief process to then think about what they actually might need going forward. Particularly at the moment, the communities are just starting to, particularly the ones that were hardest hit, are just starting to think about, actually, these are the things we want. But a lot of the big funding grants from the government particularly have closed. The biggest thing that we're noticing is communities need to be asked what they need.
So asked and given time, I think I'm hearing from you to enable them to
absolutely
consider. Yep. And again, we've got one of our initiatives, the Disaster Giving Collective, is to try and mitigate that problem of assumed giving, because you're correct, like communities trying to recover in the chaos of what disasters bring, and then there's all these assumptions of what other people think that you need to have on top of that, and giving you things that they think you need to receive, which you might not even, and not only have you not had time to think about what you need to receive, that's like you're then having to accept things that you probably don't even want, which I think is a big it's a big gap in the disaster space. Hayley, thank you so much for your time. So I've been speaking to Hayley Hardy, and she's the marketing manager at the East Gippsland Marketing Inc. And we have been talking about a winter festival of community resilience, and it's completely related to the East Gippsland Winter Festival. All the links are on the website. If you can attend, do, or look it up online and maybe get ready to attend next year. But Hayley, thanks so much. Really great to chat with you.
Thanks, Renae. That was great.
That's the end of this episode of Doing Disasters Differently, the podcast, which I hope you found to be relevant, informative, and inspiring. If you're interested in participating in the conversation or to connect with me personally, please visit corporate2community.com. Until the next episode, stay safe, and remember, we all have a role to play in thinking differently and doing differently before, during, and after disasters.